Hey everybody, Bob here and welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to continue working on the mini jet boat build. As you can see here, it is belly side up. That means I'm going to be welding on the bottom. Up until now, I have welded everything on the top side and I've welded everything I can do on the top. It's time to work on the bottom. And then once the hull is welded, I can put the intake in and install this plastic while the boat is turned upside down. So let's get to it. All right, so I've got the entire outside of the boat welded. It's fully welded on the top and the bottom. And as you can see here, it is now sitting on sawhorses. With it sitting on those sawhorses, it's gonna be easier for me to make a few welds because I can crawl up under there instead of laying on my back and looking straight up in the air and trying to make those welds. I can now do it easier while the boat's sitting on the sawhorses. There's also a little spot on the nose that I need to touch up. And I also need to weld in these bow supports because this boat does have the walk-through windshield feature and the bow needs a little bit extra support because we will be walking on it every time we enter and exit the boat. And I've also got this little fan sitting on the ground that's going to be blowing air straight up, and hopefully that's going to circulate the air and get all of that smoke out from underneath the hull, because I really don't want this to be like a big Cheech and Chong umbrella and just have a whole bunch of smoke up under there while I'm trying to weld. And yes, for all of the trolls out there, I am going to be wearing a respirator while I'm up under there welding also. So hopefully all of this will work and everything will turn out okay. And here's a quick look at the seam that I'm going to be welding. It runs from the bulkhead all the way up and around up to the nose, and it does this on both sides. All right, so I got all the welding done under here. As you can see, I got both seams done, and I did have to do this off camera because the lighting conditions were just terrible under here. And I got both of the bow supports welded in while I was under here as well. And as you can see, they are fully welded in. So I am done welding underneath here. Next, I'm going to weld on these tie-down outlets. I purchased one for the front and then a pair for the back. But before I can weld the one on the front, it's going to be welded onto the nose. I'm going to have to grind down that weld. And while I've got the boat upside down and sitting on sawhorses, I'm going to take advantage of the fact, and I'm going to do some grinding. I'm going to grind all of the sides that normally would be facing downward and hard to get to if the boat were sitting right side up. All right, so I'm ready to start installing the intake, and I need to finish cutting this hole out right here. Jetstream cut this out at the factory, but for some reason this piece wasn't cut off right here. So I'm going to cut that off right now using my jigsaw. And to weld in the intake, I'm going to be switching over to this new welder that I got from Yes Welder. It's a double pulse MIG welder, and so far I've been getting awesome results welding aluminum. If you want to see the review video that I made on this welder, I'll put a link to it right up here in the corner of the screen and also down in the description of the video. Okay, so now that the intake is welded into the boat, I need to start drilling some holes into the transom. You can see I've already got these 4 bolt holes drilled out, and what I did is I just marked where the intake was sitting on the inside of the transom and then drilled these through. And then I took my adapter ring and bolted it onto the boat through those holes, took a Sharpie and outlined this. So you can see I've got a circle here now. This is what needs to be removed. Need to make a hole right here, and this is where the water is going to come through and go into the jet drive. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hole saw. This is the biggest hole saw that I had, and it's 5 inches, and I'm just going to remove the majority of the material with the hole saw. And then I've been told by some other guys that have already built these Buccaneer kits to take a router bit like this one that has the bearing on top and then just clean up around the hole with this router and the bearing. And to me, I'm kind of a little skeptical because I believe this is a wood bit, and using it on aluminum, I don't know how well it's going to work, but I've been told this is the way to do it, so we're going to find out. All right, so that router worked pretty well. You can see I got a nice clean cut all the way around. And I did have to put these 2 bolts in here and kind of alternate back and forth, because you can see the transom, if I push in on it, the transom doesn't touch the bottom of the intake unless the bolts are in there tight, and the router would hit them as I come around. So I had to tighten this one and then do this side, and then tighten that one, then do this side. Also, this weld right here, the router hit it, and it was kind of hard to get this little top section right here. So if you're building one of these boats, weld your intake in, don't do this weld, cut the hole, and then do that weld. It'll make things a little bit easier. But all in all, it did a really nice job. That router bit on the router, and I don't think I could have made a cleaner, closer cut doing that any other way. All right, so here's where I'm at right now in this build process. I've got the hull completely welded inside and out. I've got the intake welded on the outside, and I have the holes all cut into the transom for the jet drive. Now, I may have run into a slight issue, because at this point in the process, this is where I would start adding the UHMW bottom onto the boat. But like I said, I may have run into an issue. The engine I'm going to be using in this boat is going to be a Yamaha SVHO engine. And I've been told that those engines have an oil pan that will hit the bottom of the boat if you don't weld an angle into the intake. Well, I did weld the intake in at an angle, but I may not have put enough of an angle so that the engine clears the bottom of the boat. So I'm not going to put the UHMW on just yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the boat over, and I'm going to start working on getting the engine in the boat before I completely weld that intake in on both sides and put the plastic on the bottom, because if I do have to go back and make some changes right now, it'll be much easier if that intake isn't fully welded in and there's no plastic on the bottom of the boat. All right, so here I am stuck again, waiting on help to arrive so that we can get this boat off of the sawhorses on the ground and rolled over so I can start putting the engine in the boat a little bit ahead of schedule. Now, I have run into another issue, and that is the engine is still in the jet ski. I have not started disassembling the jet ski yet, but I am making a totally separate video altogether on the jet ski and all of that process. So stay tuned for that video. I know this one was a little bit shorter than usual, but I'm just kind of delivering the news as I get to it, you know, the good with the bad. And right now I'm just kind of stuck. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give me that big thumbs up. And if you aren't a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell so you don't miss any upcoming Making Stuff videos. And thanks for watching.